The heat of the battlefield pressed against my skin, the air thick with dust and tension. The sun hung high in the sky, casting long shadows over the valley where we stood, locked in a silent, unyielding standoff. On one side, we Israelites hesitant, uncertain, fear written in our eyes. On the other, the Philistines bold, armored, and led by a towering nightmare of a man, Goliath. I had heard the stories of giants before, but none had prepared me for this. His sheer size defied nature. His armor gleamed under the sun like the scales of a beast, and in his grip, a spear that could pierce through stone. He stepped forward, his voice like thunder rolling across the valley. His challenge echoed, daring any man to face him in single combat. But no one moved, no one breathed. We were frozen in terror. The weight of the moment pressed down on me like a crushing force. The fate of our nation teetered on the edge of a blade, and no warrior dared to step forward. Then, from amidst the ranks, a single figure emerged, a boy, young and unarmored, his face steady with determination. David. He walked with the confidence of someone who had already seen the battle's outcome. A shepherd, not a soldier, carrying no sword, no shield, only a sling and 5 smooth stones taken from a nearby stream. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through our camp, yet he did not falter. He moved past us, stepping onto the battlefield with an unshakable purpose. I stood among the soldiers, watching as the Philistine giant let out a deep, rumbling laugh, mocking the sight before him. David did not react. He simply reached into his pouch, pulled out a stone, and placed it in the sling. His movements were fluid, practiced, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. Goliath moved forward, his steps shaking the earth, his spear raised to strike. But before he could act, David had already released the stone. The air itself seemed to freeze as the small, unassuming rock cut through the sky. I barely had time to process it before the impact. A sickening crack echoed through the valley. The stone struck Goliath's forehead with terrifying precision. His laughter ceased. His monstrous form swayed for a single, disbelieving moment. Then, like a felled tree, he collapsed, his massive body crashing into the earth. Silence engulfed both armies. Then came the roar of triumph. We surged forward, our fear shattered, our spirits rekindled by the sight of the fallen giant. The Philistines, stunned and disoriented, turned and fled as our victorious cries echoed across the valley. The battle was over before it had even begun. I stood motionless, my heart racing, my mind struggling to grasp what I had just witnessed. This was not a victory of strength. This was not a battle won by numbers or strategy. This was faith in motion, a single moment where belief defied the impossible. David, the shepherd boy, had become a warrior, and I, Benaya, had seen the hand of God move once again. The echoes of the battle still rang in my ears long after the dust had settled. I walked the field where giants had fallen and where faith had prevailed. The ground, once trembling under the weight of war, now felt sacred. The very spot where Goliath's massive form had crashed down seemed like an altar of divine intervention. David stood at a distance, his face calm, his hands still gripping the sling that had changed history. There was no arrogance in his expression, no boastful pride, only the quiet understanding of a man who had trusted in something greater than himself. I turned my gaze toward the retreating Philistines. Their once mighty army was scattered, their confidence shattered like the giant they had placed their faith in. Fear had consumed them just as it had once paralyzed us. I realized in that moment that this battle had not been about brute force or military power. It had been a war of belief, and belief had won. As the Israelites gathered around David, their cheers filling the air, I found myself looking at the young shepherd in a different light. He was no longer just a boy from Bethlehem. He was a leader, chosen by God, destined for something far greater than any of us could yet understand. I took one last look at the battlefield before turning away, my heart pounding with the weight of what I had witnessed. This was only the beginning. The world had just seen what faith could do, and I, Benaya, had been there to witness it all.